So our next question comes from John L. This is a good one, Robert. It's very in-depth and very thorough. John's 53, lives in Colorado, and has been working in IT for the last 28 years. He's married, has 2 kids, with one finishing up college this fall and another one starting next week. He says he's becoming an empty nester, and they've just finished paying off the first college, but will be funding their son's tuition of $15,000 per semester for the next 4 years. Historically, they've spent their money on experiences and travel with their children, and they've got to visit all 50 states with some foreign countries. They even lived in a foreign country for a few years. During that time, he says they didn't invest much, but they did manage a budget on one salary, so they'd live off one salary, spend the other. John says he currently makes a little over $100,000 in his current position and works for a government entity after being laid off 2 years ago. His wife now makes $20,000 a year in her current part-time job. They have $210,000 in a traditional IRA, $4,000 in a brokerage account, and he also has $25,000 in his pension. John says he has $1,000 in a high-yield savings account, a few $100 in some equities and crypto. John also says he's tried some options trading, but wasn't very successful. He says, I'm in the process of starting a side hustle, doing some vending machine work to start bringing in some passive income and hope to scale that over the next few years. We have a car coming off lease in September, which will free up $330 a month. Paid cash for our other car, which is worth $36,000. When my son leaves for college next week, I'll drive his old 4Runner. Our mortgage payment is $800 and our townhome is about $180,000 left on the mortgage. John says he wants to focus on minimizing expenses so that he can retire gracefully over the next decade or two. Robert, I feel like we see this a lot. You know, they're in their 50s and John enjoyed the last 20 years of his life, right? From 33 to 53. I mean, it seems like living off one salary, spending the other, just having a good time. And I'm not saying, John, that having $200,000 invested at 53 is bad by any stretch of the imagination. You'll still be able to retire a millionaire. We'll give you some numbers on that. But specifically, Robert, I want you to talk toward how in their current situation, working to ensure that the kids' college gets paid for, coming off a lease right now, they've got an $800 a month mortgage, right? What are some maybe strategies that John can implement to ensure that he's retiring gracefully in the next 1 to 2 decades?
Yeah, what I see here, and I'm guilty of it, and a lot of people are, is John is trying to add income, but always by swinging for the fences with these entrepreneurial journeys. What I would rather see John do is get these retirement accounts built up further. Because can he get to be a millionaire by the time of retirement? Sure. But what happens if, like the options trading, he goes and buys these vending machines, works them for a few months, they're not passive, he loses money, he sells them at a loss, then he's right back to ground zero. So what I'd love to recommend John and anyone like him in this situation is go out and get a side hustle. Go get a second job. Don't start a side hustle because then you're basically starting another business. And I'm all about entrepreneurship, but I'm not about telling people to be entrepreneurs if they don't have a big enough safety net going into retirement. So that's the key factor here. Don't think I'm changing my ways. I'm sticking to the entrepreneur lifestyle, but I don't want to see John or anyone else go out and invest this money, invest the time. 2 years down the road, they haven't done any more investing towards retirement because they're trying all of these side hustles. I'd go find a job. Maybe it makes $1,000, $2,000 a month on the side, because with the government job, I'm assuming it's a 9 to 5, you have weekends off, so you have all this spare time to where you could go work somewhere else, take that $2,000 a month, put it all into retirement, and really set yourself up for financial freedom.
I really don't want to say this, but I think you might have to have a hard conversation with your son and let him know, hey, I can't afford to give you $15,000 per semester for the next 4 years. I mean, let's think about that. That's $120,000 that you are gifting your son via college tuition, which is after-tax money. First off, that $120,000, you need that much more than he does, in my humble opinion. Let's say you can't afford the $120 and you can still afford to invest $1,000 a month after taxes toward your Roth IRA, your wife's Roth IRA, whatever here, combined as a household, $1,000 a month for the next 14 years until you're 67. You will have just at $1 million, assuming an 8.5% annual return, which includes that 2.5 to 3.5% inflation rate over the next, again, 14 years or so. If you can't afford to do $1,000 a month, and you can afford to gift your son $120,000 over the next 4 years, which comes out to another $2,500 a month on average, assuming you spread it out over the summertime and the winter and things like that. That's a lot, right? We're talking about $3,500 a month after taxes on $120,000 a year salary. We're talking about $3,500 a month that needs to now, $2,500 of that goes to your son for his college, and another $1,000 bare minimum needs to get invested for you to retire a millionaire in the next 14 years. And that is for a household bringing home $7,000. So if you can bring home $7,000 and literally 50% of it can just get moved over and you can live off of $3,500 a month. I mean, you do have a low mortgage payment and your lease is coming up, so maybe you can. But if you can do those things, like that's how this all comes together. In my humble opinion, with only, what was it here, $1,000 in your high yield savings account, I don't see much of an emergency fund. I would be surprised if you guys don't have credit card debt or some sort of personal loan situation. Like, it just seems to me like the numbers aren't going to shake out if you are choosing to fund your son's $120,000 of college for the next 4 years. I would say, and this goes back to what Robert and I think we mentioned this on a previous episode, which was like, whenever the plane is crashing, they always say, put your mask on before you help other people put their mask on, right? Like, you got to put your mask on, which means you have to focus on your own retirement, your own financial well-being, because if you don't, then fast forward 14, 15, 20 years, you guys, let's say worst case scenario, aren't able to invest anything over that period of time, or maybe very minimally, and you only have a couple $100,000 or, 3, 4, 500,000 in retirement, which it's not as much as you would like. And maybe you're now a burden to your children financially. And so that might have a weird, rocky relationship because of it. So John, I guess what I'm trying to say here is please consider your situation when it comes to your son's tuition. If you can't afford to give him $2,500 a month, or again, $15,000 per semester, so that's 2 semesters a year, $30,000 a year for 4 years. If you can't afford that, that's wonderful. In my humble opinion, you can't. I would much rather see that money invested to you and your wife's retirement, which if you did end up investing it, your $1 million would turn into $1.8 million, which is a much better situation to be in.
Yeah, to me, the numbers just don't add up. The math ain't mathin'. All I can think about in my head right now is the song Living on the Edge. I think it's Poison or one of those bands, because this really highlights the headline that we've been seeing a lot of the last couple of years, that over 60% of households making over $100,000 a year are living paycheck to paycheck. And this is that situation. I just don't think the numbers shake out. I would find a way to get the college paid for by student loans and put some of the onus on your son, because I just feel like Austin alluded to, you have to take care of yourselves first because there's no one else to do it for you.
And also for your son, Dad, I don't want to go $120,000 into student loan debt. What the heck? He shouldn't. He shouldn't go $120,000 in student loan debt. He should maybe go $40,000 to $60,000 into student loan debt, assuming he's studying something that's going to pay him $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 after his first year graduating. Your son can go to a community college for 2 years, take that associate's degree, lateral that into a bachelor's at a state-sponsored school. It did that at the University of Tennessee all the time. You go to Pellissippi Community College, you pay $1,000 or $2,000 a semester for classes, you're still living at home. Who cares? You're saving money. And then now you pay cash for that because it's a couple $1,000s every semester. So that's $500 a month essentially. And then you go to the University of Tennessee, assuming you live in state. Now your state tuition's probably $5,000 to $6,000, I think is about where it was per semester back then, which, I graduated with about $20,000 in student loans because I was living in state. That's about what it was for me. So there's a world where your son can absolutely go from 120 way down to like 30, 40, or 50, depending on how your son plays this game. Please encourage them to do some research into this. And please, I'm encouraging you to reconsider paying $120,000 over the next 4 years for college tuition.